Show on Footmex Live.
Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I am Wiso from FootmexHost.com. Back from Brazil, back from the sights, the sounds, the culture, the World Cup, obviously the pain, the agony. 5 more minutes. Buena penal! Let's go ahead and meet the group for today's video podcast. Let's start this going. Let's make this a happy show. Let's not be depressed anymore. It's been 1 week. Tom Marshall, how are you doing, sir?
Not bad, Wiso, yeah. Enjoying the World Cup, obviously. And, yeah.
Enjoying. It's been a week.
All good.
You feeling all right?
Not bad. A lot of stories to write. Calming down now, though. And, you know, obviously the season coming up. So a little bit of a couple of days kind of like you know, medium steam for work-wise, so all good.
Good. Jonny Rico, obviously a character. I'm sure you've had a whole week to process everything. This is why we had the show this late. We couldn't get together. Too many emotions were happening on the last Monday and Tuesday, but a week later. Jonny, how are you?
Doing pretty good. The week and the rest of the World Cup's going to be that little girl singing Pinches Holandeses. It'll be better. That song is probably better than the final.
This is like the R-rated Mexican soccer show. Slowly turning, yeah.
We apologize in advance for anything that Jonny and everyone was going to say. We might get a little bit too emotional on her, but the parents, where are the parents of that little girl? And obviously, Eric, sir, how are you, sir?
Doing great. I'm still angry that Roy Hodgson has not quit the England national team, because that would mean that, you know, that would mean that Piojo would get an offer to take England over, and I would like that just because of the entertainment value. You would get 24-hour tabloids linking Miguel Herrera to Pippa Middleton, you know? Like, is Miguel Herrera banging Pippa Middleton? Like, that's the type of stuff that you would see, like, in the Daily Mirror if Piojo was coaching England. So, I don't know. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, this is going to be...
I'd be down for it. I'd be down with that. No doubt about it. Imagine the entertainment value.
Oh, man. This is going to be a great show, guys. Obviously, we're going to
imagine him learning English and then gradually getting to grips with it. It'd be absolutely hilarious.
Oh, wow. Great show for you guys today. Obviously, we're going over the World Cup participation, Mexico, the performance, the players. We're going to look forward to the future and obviously and beyond. Maybe talk a little bit about what players are staying. Clean house, like Eric said. Just clean the house. A lot of topics for us. This is the Mexican Soccer Show. Let's get started. First of all, guys, the reactions. It's been a little bit over a week, obviously, with... a terrible, which I have to say, one of the worst losses emotionally for the fans. Maybe not. I think 2002 was a more of an emotional hit for everybody else, but actually knowing that 5 more minutes and we were there, and no era penal, everything that's been happening as a nation coming together, mourning the fact that we almost were there in that quinto partido, the obsessive quinto partido. So let's hear your reactions on obviously the World Cup campaign, on the last game, the last 5 minutes, the last 3 minutes, man, that changed the whole history of Mexico into the World Cup. So, Tom, take it away, sir. You felt it. You've written about it, countless articles on what we need to do. But how did you see it, just on your point of view?
Yeah, I think you're right about from the Mexican fan point of view, it hurt him more. And I think it was because they played really well. For, maybe 70, 75 minutes, Mexico were the better team against the top side in Holland with a top manager, you know what I mean, who's got a lot of European trophies. So from that point of view, it's like almost providing that shot that the tournament, hadn't really had until then, especially in the knockout rounds. So I think that, that's the big disappointment. I think that if you take a bit of a wider angle and you look at where Mexico were at a year ago and the qualifying and the disaster and having to go to New Zealand and the 4 coaches in 6 weeks and stuff, then it's like, really good World Cup. And you read the foreign press, from Europe and stuff, and everybody's left with a great, taste in their mouth about this Mexico team. And I think that, but that doesn't make it any easier to swallow, especially the way it went with the Robben penalty, which probably was a penalty when you look at it really closely, and Marquez shouldn't really be diving in there, but if you're a fan or a manager of that team that penalty is given against, I think you have every right to also be really angry, and obviously Piojo was.
So si era penal. We changed it for Tom's view. And Jonny, obviously, a horrible loss, and especially for a fan, and what we've already mentioned. How did you see everything? Planning out not only just the last game, but obviously the World Cup participation in Mexico?
Well, it was a tough one to swallow because we were not only 3 minutes away from El Quinto Partido. Looking at the next rival, we were almost in the semifinals already.
Whoa!
And yes, I do think Mexico.
Oh, look who brought Skip Bayless, man? Who brought Skip Bayless to the party with these hot takes? Costa Rica is completely inferior.
Keep going, John. Keep going.
Go ahead, Skip. Go ahead.
Honestly, yeah. In my mind, I think if Mexico gets by Holland, they're in the semifinals. And against Argentina, the way they're playing, it might as well have been almost the final. So it's a huge loss opportunity in my mind. It's very frustrating in that aspect. But I think overall in the game, I think Mexico lost it when Giovanni Dos Santos came off. I think he needed to come off a little later in the game, around maybe the 70th, 75th minute. And I don't think it should have been Aquino to come on. I think it should have been Carlos Peña. Carlos Peña could probably do a little more work in the middle of the field. Aquino's more of a wide player. We all knew that. That's why he got excluded in the original 23-man roster. I don't know why he came in such a crucial time in the tournament.
Yeah. Well, these are obviously the last 20 minutes made that game. And we'll talk a little bit about Piojo's tactics a little bit later. But Eric, overall reaction. Obviously, you're seeing it from Mexico City. You're there. What's up, man? How did you feel about the loss? At the same time, like I said, Mexico's overall participation.
The loss. I was crushed about the loss. It was just absolutely gut-wrenching. But the telltale signs for a Mexico collapse were there. Jonny mentioned it. They take Giovanni Dos Santos off in the 70th minute. Mexico failed to attack in a cohesive, coherent manner after the 48th minute, which was when Giovanni scored that goal. Mexico became absolutely, they were absolutely scared out of their gourds that they were up 1-0. I think Mexico's a team that is always in a better position, at least mentally, psychologically, when they're losing 1-0 or when the game is on the line. When Mexico goes up in the scoreline, you see all these really crazy things just kind of converge at once. Miguel Herrera was just absolutely insane to go on one of his classic post-match tirades and say that the ref cost Mexico this game. No, the ref did not cost Mexico this game. The game was 1-1. You were going into extra time. You don't know what was going to happen next. Wesley Sneijder just put an absolute screamer in the back of the net. But that was preceded by 12 or 13 shots that Holland missed or were stopped by Memo Ochoa in the second half. In the second half, Holland was able to put 12 or 13 shots, I can't remember the exact number, before Sneijder scored. So this is not the type of conversation you want to be having after a critical round of 16 game, especially when all this talk, and this goes way beyond Miguel, this goes back to Vucetic, this goes back to Chepo, in saying we need to get to that quinto partido, we need to get past the round of 16, we need to beat that psychological monster that has been absolutely crushing us since 1994. They just came up short again. So my reaction isn't as visceral as most people that you see on Twitter, that most people that you see on television for that matter, because, again, I saw it coming. So it was very, very kind of strange, and I'm going to get self-referential here, I don't care, when I published that column after the game, just basically thanking Rafa Marquez for his service, but, really kind of pointing him out as this tragic Greek hero or anti-hero, where everything that's good about Mexico is embodied in Rafa Marquez, but everything that's bad about Mexican football is embodied in Rafa Marquez. And Rafa Marquez is the guy that you live die by Rafa. He will score goals. He will put the team on the board being a central defender. He's done it in 3 World Cups. And he'll also be very, very critical in the back, whether it be for good or whether it be for bad. This time, I honestly don't think that the contact that he produced with Robin was enough to be called a penalty. I think it was more or less based on his reputation, based on Robin's reputation. I still don't think that he should have even that foot in the first place. I think that was his biggest mistake. But the contact, objectively, is not a penalty. Whatever. Robin had, I mean, he admitted diving in the box earlier. He was going to get one of those calls eventually. It was just a very, very gut-wrenching moment for Mexico that happened in the 91st minute, in the 92nd minute. But, you know, looking forward, I think the worst part about this is that you have 4 more years. And I think a lot of people were very, very objectively excited coming off of 2010 and 2011 towards 2014. And now we're stuck with that nagging feeling and saying, oh man, it's 4 years until the next World Cup. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows who's going to get there?
Very, very obviously good points in taking that. I think a lot of people have. As a fan, you know, you're looking at the fans and you're looking at that last, you know, penalty kick. And obviously it was it or it was. Looking at when I was at the stadium, I mean, I was actually pretty close on that side of the field. I saw him go out. I mean, I was fooled too. Looking at it, you know, I saw Rafa with that foot going in there, and it was there contact, but it looked like a penalty kick at the stadium. It did look like a penalty kick, and I'll say it. Walking in the Castelao, walking back to the rides, I mean, just depressed on how we were so close. I was more depressed on how we were so close, not so much angry. It wasn't until later, you know, obviously seeing that it wasn't a penal, seeing the replay, seeing everything. Obviously, us fans are so angry at Robin for doing that because ultimately, looking at it, he shouldn't have dove. He sold it correctly, but at the same time, you know. It happens. The penal wasn't called at the beginning in the first half, and I don't know if the ref was compensating because of that. I have a problem with how, you know, a minute left. You know, it would have been better if the teams would have played on. And yeah, and you know what? Holland would have came in. Hopefully, Piojo would be smart enough to change tactics, and he saw it or something. I mean, it wasn't like he was doing horrible during the World Cup. I think Piojo made amazing subs in the other games. I think he did amazing in his prior games, setting up the team, getting the team ready, and playing during it. So I don't know what would happen in the last 20 minutes, 30 minutes of the game in the extra times. But going into the extra time, getting beaten, looking at a lot of the U.S. fans all around us, you know, how they're like, oh, you know what, we tried, we got beaten, you know, for whatever reason. That could have been us. Maybe we're still losing, but we can lose it. You know what, the team was better. And there's so much that we can say about that on what Mexico did in the last minutes. But let's go ahead. Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was thinking, you know, Eric was saying, you know, well, there's been a lot of talk about Herrera and the subs and stuff, and, you know, obviously when you look back with hindsight and the way, you know, Holland came back from 1-0 down to win 2-1, you know, it's going to invite criticism, and, you know, it makes sense, the criticism as well, you know, like we've said. But I think, you know, something Eric hinted at then is the reaction of the players after the 48th minute, after they scored, because there was a nervousness. Or it seemed to be a nervousness. I think I even wrote on Twitter, if Mexico keep giving the ball away like they are doing, you know, they're gonna concede goals here. I mean, it was just so obvious, you know what I mean? And I don't think that's all kind of Herrera's fault. Maybe he's not kind of transmitting the right vibes at that point. But I felt that the players have to take some responsibility for just the way I mean, Herrera said after the game that he wasn't telling him to drop back. And I honestly think that there was a bit of nervousness, or a lot of nervousness, about Mexico in that second half after they scored.
Well, I think with the sub, I mean, if you look at the way after they score, it was almost like it was an unbelievable, oh my gosh, we can do this. And I, as a fan, being at the stadium, I'm like, I cannot believe, you know, Van Persie's coming out. One of the best players in the World Cup. Mexico made him, you know, be pretty much made Van Persie a ghost in the whole game. So I mean, it was so unbelievable that was there, and that's, I don't know if that's a character change. I mean, that's something that we need to do if it's motivation, however it is. Hey, we can play versus these teams. Yeah, and you said the team, they were making elementary mistakes before the sub, Aquino sub, were going in. I mean, just they weren't looking like a team after they won. So Herrera saying
it's game management.
Yep. Herrera saying that you know, I didn't tell him to come back. Obviously, putting in Aquino, and just like you said, Tom, we can look back. It wasn't probably the best moves, and it was different. But it was. I don't see Herrera going, you know what? We're gonna, like, I don't see in any of his past games of just saying we're gonna stay back and we're not gonna attack and we're not gonna go forward and we're not gonna you know, try to win this game. Something happened, and it's just ending that game, and really taking it into the last 92nd, 93rd minute. What was Robin doing at the end? That's pretty much comes down to it. He should have never gotten that close for whatever reason. It could have been the players, and those are mistakes that we did. I still have to say it was an amazing World Cup. I think Mexico, yes, we could have gone to the quinto partido, but we did. I think we did great. I think we should applaud what Piojo did from you know, in 5 months, and how no one really thought that, you know, that Mexico could have made that, at least tie, you know, a Brazil, or, you know, beat Croatia 3-1, which was going to be the hardest game, you know, and how we did that. So I applaud the team in what we did, and not being a conformist, but we did have the best World Cup since, people are saying since 94, but I could even say into 1986. We haven't had this a team get so many points in the World Cup. So, you know, let's
2002 had 7 points.
7 points. But look how I mean, looking at the team, 2002 against the U.S. did not look like a team at all. So and in that, so I guess morally, I think this was the best team that we've had in the World Cup for a while. And I'm excited about the future on what it is. Obviously, it was a painful loss, but let's talk about those subs. You know, Aquino coming in, and a lot of people are talking about Salcido. He should have been in the game. What are your thoughts on I guess the players after that goal? And we talked a little bit about it, but Jonny, a little bit about those subs. Did Herrera really make a mistake? I mean, pointing down to it.
I think the Giovanni for Aquino was a mistake, like I previously said, but Salcido, I think Salcido did an amazing job going in there for Gallito Vázquez. You know, he played since the first half. Mexico pressured the entire first half. Salcido kind of contained that midfield. He pushed forward. He helped out in both boxes. I think Salcido was a great replacement for Gallito Vázquez. I don't think that anyone else could have done it better in that position. The Aquino sub for Giovanni, you know, I think it was the correct move to pull out Giovanni, push up Hector Herrera up the field a little more in the 75th minute, not the 60th, like Herrera did. I think 30 minutes of giving Holland the ball was way too much, way too exaggerated. And, you know, Herrera can try and save face and say, I didn't tell the team to push back, but the substitutions speak for themselves as to what Herrera was trying to do.
Definitely, especially, you know, I was there. I couldn't even believe that. I thought something was wrong with Gio, you know, in the stadium. Why is he coming out? This is where we go in. We saw it in against Croatia. It wasn't like we pulled back, you know, even they were dominant. We kept going. Granted, it's a different team. Tom, you know, we talked obviously the subs and what made it, but and then overall, how did Piojo do this World Cup? I mean, from the first games, planting the team, and getting those, you know, 7 points, tying with Brazil, which obviously people talk about. If we would have gotten those 2 goals, you know, from the Cameroon game, we would have been first in the group and would have had Chile. Would have been a different path. Not saying that we were going to win, but overall, Piojo in this World Cup, did he meet your expectations? I mean, coming from winning in America and then taking the team, not a lot of people were saying, you know, he had that many experience, how much experience. So what's your take on Piojo during the World Cup?
No, I think he surpassed himself. He surpassed what I expected of him. I mean, and I think for apart from those last, you know, 30 minutes, he was absolutely exceptional. You know, he was, and look at the way he just blew up all over the world with his celebrations and stuff, and you know, his style as well. He really tactically got it right for the vast majority of the World Cup. You know, and I think with the press as well, he did quite well. I mean, I think he was justified coming out at the end of the last game. I think any manager really would come out after that penalty was given against you and kind of be like throwing punches and stuff. I mean, I know it's in Piojo's character, but you know, he's always on that line, isn't he? He's always on that line of saying something really dumb. I mean, he you know, the old P chant of the Mexico fans. He was like, he justified it by what was it, the putotsin. You know, he came out in a press conference, you know, a live press conference, saying that it's an old Nahuatl word. You know, and it's like, I mean, it's hilarious, but and I mean, I honestly think that's, you know, it is hilarious, but it is very much on the line. You know, and I don't think he quite crossed it, but he's always on that barrier of crossing the line. And if in Mexican terms, is naco, no? I mean, that's what Herrera is.
He's un naco.
Is he not? I mean, is he not? When you boil it all down, is that not what he is?
He just doesn't think. I think he says what he speaks, and he says that. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw it. It was where was it? I don't know if it was a Bleacher Report article on the 20 reasons why Piojo Herrera is a badass, or I don't know if you guys saw number one. You know, he had a mullet back back then. Yeah. The way it was a hilarious way. It was a hilarious way to see. I mean, it's a character. It wasn't the, you know, Maradona, I'm out there, I'm a fan, you know, and you can have those type of coaches, but he really did bring in at least some kind. You know, he was very confident in what he did, and he saw it. And obviously, just like you said, Tom, any manager that I would think would be faulting the refs because, you know, they're seeing that last spot. Yeah,
I think the bigger question now. And I think it's a legitimate question. I mean, obviously, it seems like Herrera is going to get the job. You know, I mean, it's pretty much guaranteed, isn't it? But I mean, I think the interesting thing for me and like for people following is, should he get the job? I mean, you know, is this because I mean, you know, I wrote a story about it, and I mean, I think the job description has now changed. I mean, you know, 9 months ago or whatever, it was right. Get a team together as quick as you can, get it as good as possible to try and, you know, have a dignified World Cup. I mean, that was the bottom line. I mean, scrape over the line past New Zealand and then go there and give the country a bit of, you know, dignity, you know, after an absolutely disastrous qualifying. And I think now the whole job description is completely different. Now it's kind of balancing. It's a whole balancing act of how this team is going to move forward. How are you going to take advantage of the Olympic generation, the under-17 generation? Which of the older players are you going to get rid of? I mean, this is a whole process, and you know, I think the big question is Herrera the person to do it? Does he have the experience? Has he shown in his past he can do it? And is he at some point going to cross that line I was talking about with the press and with the things he says? Because I've got big doubts that he's going to last 4 years without saying something completely ridiculous, you know. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, he has proved me wrong in a lot of points, but I do have those doubts. What do you boys think?
I would like to have that process, the 4 years, you know.
With Herrera.
With Herrera. Start now, knows what it is. So I think I like the fact that he said he made a mistake. You know, he did. He comes out and said, I made a mistake in that, you know, in those subs. He didn't pull forward, but he obviously, just like Jonny said, the subs spoke for themselves. Have Herrera come in and start working. I believe we really need, I don't know if in his staff, we need a tactician. We need, you know, someone in his staff that knows that international game, that knows more on that. I don't know who that could be. Into it, because I think that's what's needed. But start the process. He knows. I mean, from New Zealand not taking the Euros, he knew exactly what he needed to do. He's not afraid of saying yes, saying no. He's taking the team and whatever he needs to do, whatever he sees best, and we can see it. He's a smart coach. He's not, you know, taking his heart, you know, not taking his players as America players, leaving some behind. I think he's proven enough to be the next coach. At the same time, I don't see anybody else that could be named coach now. In Mexico, I think you need to know the players. It is huge, especially for the coach. I think when you take another coach from another country that hasn't been in Mexico that long, or, you know, maybe the greatest tactician, in knowing the culture, knowing the player, knowing to motivate on your side, I think he was there. So if we can somehow get in his team, I don't know if it's someone with more tactical analysis on other teams. I think studying now is the time, taking that time to do it, and I think it's going to make us better. We have a great generation of players for the next 4 years. I mean, everyone is going to be in their top of their game with Gio, Memo, Moreno, Herrera. It's not like obviously we're losing Peralta, we're losing Rafa, Salcido. But at the same time, everybody's young. The next 4 years, everyone's going to be in their peak. We have a lot to look forward to, competitions every summer. So I wouldn't mind having Piojo there out in my own. I mean, I know Aguirre is always the savior, but I would like to see what Aguirre would do in 4 years. Just as if we couldn't find anybody else, that would be great. Just to have 4 years, but to do that, I don't know how many teams have.
What I'd like to see, I mean, Jonny, you jump in a minute, but just turning the question on its head, I'd like to see Herrera. He's just had a World Cup, he's just had the massive experience of leading his country to a World Cup, and all the happiness that brings. All right, and if you just take him for 1 second the financial thing out of it, because it obviously is a factor. People involved in football are just like normal people. Usually they go for where they can get more money. But for his point of view, is his career now. What I'd like to see him do is, instead of saying the Mexico national team is the #1 job, I've got to do it, blah, 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 I'd like to see him go, you know what, I want to go to Europe. I want to make my name. Look at all these South Americans, at Man City, at Real Madrid, all these big clubs, Barcelona last season, like the biggest clubs in Europe are hiring South American managers. All we've got is Aguirre from Mexico, and even from CONCACAF. I'd like to see him go over there and absolutely test himself out. If you can only get
Is that a truck?
There's an aeroplane overhead.
Is that a plane?
It's an airplane. But I'd like to see him go to, even if it's a second division Spanish team, whatever. I'd like to see him work his way up. He's only a young manager, you know what I mean? And come back to this Mexico job in 5, 10, 12, whatever years, you know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, I'm just throwing out my theory. And you said, Wiso, you just mentioned a few criteria there. I agree. I mean, you look at Sven-Goran Eriksson's autobiography, and it's just the stuff that he comes out with, like, you get Vergara complaining about the goalkeeping coach and why the team's staying in one hotel and not the other. I mean, what is going on there? You can just imagine a coach from Europe being like, what on earth is this federation? But Herrera can deal with that. He's very, very Mexican. I mean, all his traits, the way he speaks, like, he's so Mexican, it's unbelievable. But let me just throw one word out. Tactician. Experienced, knows the Mexican game. I mean, obviously, door's a bit shut with what happened last time, but I mean, he only lost away in Costa Rica, and we've seen how good they are, haven't we, Jonny? Your favourite team.
Jonny, what do you think about he was your man?
Well, I mean, what do you think? What do you think?
He brought you the championship. Another 4 years?
Yeah, I definitely think Herrera's the ideal candidate to stay in Mexico. As far as going to Europe, who would give up a national team that is heading for another World Cup? Let's be honest, Mexico are not getting eliminated in 4 years. Or, at best, middle-of-the-table team club for many European league.
Well, a manager who one day wants to win the Champions League, for example. Because you're not going to go from Mexico to a Champions League club. You'd have to build yourself up, like Pellegrini.
Yeah, Javier Aguirre bit that apple in 2002. He ended up in Osasuna, and he was in the Champions League 4 years later. Didn't really work out for him this time around after the second time that he managed Mexico. But
was he given the option to stay with the team again in 2002?
He didn't want to.
2002 he was. 2006 he
was. 2002 he was. 2010 he was not. I mean, I'm pretty sure we weren't even at that stage in talks, and I don't think that it would have been probably the best thing to do with all the controversy with Guillafranco and Conejo Perez. Probably not the best thing to do.
He also said Mexico was jodido a few months before the World Cup. It doesn't help any job application, does it?
And I think Herrera leaves Brazil was kind of like a World Cup chip on his shoulder. Like, he feels he could have done better, and I'm sure that's gonna be like his #1 goal is to improve the performance at the next World Cup. And I don't think there's any bigger goals than that right now for Herrera or for the
I understand that he might have European dreams. He might be thinking big in terms of attempting to capitalize on a certain moment in his career, but I honestly don't think that beyond any mid-level team or even a team that's scrapping for to stave off relegation, I don't think anybody is looking at Miguel Herrera as a type of long-term solution in the European game, quite frankly, because you still think that this might have been a flash in the pan. Mexico's been incredibly inconsistent over the past 3 years. You talk about 2011 and
wow,
just an amazing comeback in the final of the Gold Cup. Before that, they were dominating. 2012 was all about the U23s and Mexico playing against some very, very low-level teams and Costa Rica and finishing that preliminary round of the World Cup qualifiers 18 out of 18. And then you get to 2013, and it's just an absolute debacle with the same group of players, the same manager for the first 8 months of the year. I mean, who's to say that this Mexico is also not the Mexico that you're going to see in the 2015 Gold Cup and the 2015 Copa America? He's going to take a risk no matter what. He's going to take the risk to stay with Mexico and maybe turn this thing on its head next year, or maybe, I mean, if he doesn't win the Gold Cup next year, even with the level of play that Costa Rica showed this year, with the level of play that the United States showed this year, I mean, I don't think that that it's going to be that the honeymoon's going to continue for him. So he's taking a risk either way. If he goes to Europe, I don't think he's going to get anything that's remotely close to a project, a kind of a long-term project that's going to kind of nurture him as he moves along. Aguirre got Osasuna, a team that he played for, a team that he had a history with, and they promised him, I was like, we're going to give you time to grow. We believe in you. You were here 16 years ago. Miguel Herrera does not have that advantage, so he really needs to show up. I like the way that European managers usually go about this with national teams. They don't usually sign for the World Cup. They sign on for the next Euro. Roy Hodgson is signed until 2016. Vicente del Bosque is signed until 2016. Cesare Prandelli, before resigning to his post, was signed to 2016. You know, Mexico, I don't know. It's kind of a risky deal to sign a coach through 2015 because our Confederation Championship is in odd numbered years, and if you cut it too close, 2017 with the Confederations Cup and blah blah blah, then you're right back where you started 12 months before the World Cup. You don't know who your manager is. But I would think that Herrera needs to sign contracts that are based more or less on objectives, short-term objectives, and not sell people on the idea of this 4-year proceso, because we were sold on this idea with Chepo de la Torre, and I think that's what really brought the entire country, not just the fans, not just the federation executives, but the players, into panic mode. It's like, this was supposed to last us 4 years, and now we're just on a freaking island. We don't know what's going on, and we're so close to missing out on the World Cup for the first time in 24 years. That would have been disastrous. Mexico needs to give Herrera a 1-year contract and say, take us to the Gold Cup. You need to get to the final of the Gold. You need to show us something at the Gold Cup and at least get us that half a berth into the Confederations Cup, and then we'll talk.
Honestly, I think he's gunning more for Copa America.
2016 is the same deal. I mean, you might have the Olympics still. Copa America is not. 2015 Copa America is going to be just a weird exercise. You have the Centenario in 2016. Who knows what teams are going to prioritize? 2016 is kind of a money grab, but you still have the insanely attractive option of having that competition being broadcast all over the world because of the TV rights that are going into the 2016 Copa America. You get the feeling that the 2016 Copa America is going to be a little bit more enticing for federations and for players because it's going to be a bigger market for them to go maybe off to Europe if you're a young Uruguayan player, if you're a young Colombian. I'm not saying that the 2015 is not going to be important, but I mean, this is such a weird 4-year cycle. You're going to have two Copa Americas, two Copa Oros, possibly a Confederations Cup. You're going to defend that gold medal, and I use quotation marks because Herrera's not going to be coaching that team, but it's still a huge, very strange 4-year process for Mexico moving forward.
Yeah, the odd nature of the 2015 Copa America, I think Herrera has zeroed in on that and kind of made it winnable in that aspect. There's not many. This could be a year after the World Cup. Brazil and Argentina are probably going to have World Cup hangovers. I think Miguel Herrera sees 2015 Copa America as very winnable, and for him to become the first manager to win a Copa America in Mexico's history, I think that's the biggest thing he's gunning for next.
For all the viewers out there,
I don't know, man. Uruguay and Paraguay didn't have World Cup hangovers in 2011. Uruguay won that thing after finishing, fourth place? And Paraguay got to the quarterfinals, they got to the final.
I think it's extremely difficult. I mean, look at Chile. I mean, look at Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina. That's a very, very difficult tournament.
I think that's where Herrera thinks that. I mean, we had Netherlands we had the game one without his mistakes. So going in there and winning the Copa America would be huge, according to Jonny.
But also we're still waiting on whether CONCACAF are going to demand that Mexico plays with under 23 players.
Well, they haven't. I thought there was already something that said that it's not going to be. They're not going to demand the sub 23. Now, would it happen even if they don't demand it? I think this is what's going to happen. I think in 2015 they're going to focus on the Gold Cup. And they're gonna take not a sub 23, but I think an all Mexican league for the for the Copa America, which is just the players. Still a very competitive team, but not necessarily that under 23. Which ultimately wasn't. I mean, I think it was a disaster because of what happened with the Quito and all that happened. A lot of the players that left and
I think the Gold Cup. CONCACAF needs to move the Gold Cup into even-numbered years. And I'll tell you why. They need to accommodate for Mexico and possibly later on the United States or even Costa Rica and Honduras to compete in the Copa America because it's allowing those federations, especially Mexico, to grow and to acquire a different level of play and play against difficult teams that you normally don't see during friendlies. Who are the South American teams that Mexico always squares off against for friendlies? Ecuador, Venezuela, Bolivia. I mean, that is just absolute crap. In the Copa America, you get to see possibly again an Argentina, a Brazil, a Uruguay, Colombia, teams that are right on the cusp of becoming world powers or are world powers. Mexico cannot afford to throw away another Copa America, but they cannot afford to throw away another Gold Cup. So I think CONCACAF needs to really think this through and say, all right, we're going to move this to even-numbered years, and we're going to prep people for the summer of Euro and the summer of Olympic competition. I mean, there's 3 months in that summer. The Gold Cup is a rickety tournament. It still is a rickety tournament with 12 teams, and out of those 12 teams, two are going to, with the exception of Panama in the 2013 Gold Cup, you know that it's a tournament designed for Mexico and the United States to square off in the final. So what do? You push that thing. You push that thing into 2016 or 2020 moving forward, and you say, all right, we're going to do this early June, mid-June, right after you guys get through with your league seasons, again, with the weirdness that the MLS plays through the summer. But you do that so that Mexico and the United States and whoever else wants to participate in the Copa America has the opportunity to bring an A team into a tournament that, quite frankly, is still more important than the Gold Cup, despite what the reward is. You know what I mean? If maybe CONMEBOL says, all right, we open this thing up for everybody. We don't care if you're CONCACAF. You win this tournament as a CONCACAF team, you get to go to the Confederations Cup. Wow, that really kind of moves things into a different level. But I mean, again, the easiest thing is for CONCACAF to change. I don't know. They might think this is a good idea if there's money involved. Let's get Chuck Blazer back and negotiate the big bucks, man. Chuck Blazer's a genius.
It comes down to it's all about money. There's a reason why we have 2 Gold Cups every 2 years, and what happens. And now the Confederation Cup being that playoff, we got to get the U.S. I think the most important it would be trying to get to the Confederations Cup one more time, no matter what. No, we're Copa America.
We had Gold Cups. We had Gold Cups during World Cup years. Remember 2002, 98? Those were World Cup years. There were Gold Cups during those years. I mean, it's just crazy.
Jonny, you're about to say something?
Yeah, I don't think it's all about money because Mexican Federation has tons of money, yet they can't buy any influence inside CONCACAF. CONCACAF, based in New York, won't take one decision that benefits Mexico. They already took Copa Sudamericana away from the Mexican clubs. They enforced Mexico to go with a U23 last Copa America. You know, if it was all about money, I'm sure Mexican Federation could have already bought some kind of influence.
Well, it was money as in the fact that the CONCACAF is making money off 2 gold cups. You know, it's about how it's going to benefit CONCACAF, not it's going to benefit Mexico, benefit CONMEBOL. And that's where I was saying that it's all about money with them. It's having 2 gold cups. Having Mexico participate with their A team on both of the gold cups would be great, because obviously you would see that in the competition and the fans, you know, that packing the U.S. stadiums. And, you know, look at the 2009 Gold Cup. I saw here in Phoenix when I think it was Guadalupe in Mexico. It wasn't packed at all. I mean, it wasn't at all. Why? Because we weren't taking the players. Even though we had good players playing there, it wasn't packed. But when it's, you know, the A team, you know, when it's, you know, when it's the good players that are coming in because it's a FIFA tournament, I think that's where CONCACAF. So obviously, hopefully CONCACAF can listen to our podcast. We could solve, you know, this problem, as Eric would say. But let's take it back to the players of the World Cup. Who stood out? The winners and losers, let's say, into obviously who was the best players that either if it was a surprise or that we've had. If you could name one that stood above the rest and played the best World Cup that they've had, who would that be? I'll throw it to you, Tom.
Is this the I told you so section?
Is it?
Well, I've only been mentioning Guillermo Ochoa for 4 years.
That was going to be a bad defense, man.
I was going to say Navas. You know, like
I was gonna say.
Yeah, that's how about Tim Howard, man? Just amazing. 16 saves, bro.
Timmy Howard.
Who are all those?
Johnny.
Question for you: If you're Roberto Martinez next season, Everton manager, who do you put in? And you've got two choices: Ochoa or Howard. Who do you put in?
Well, okay, I'm Martinez. I'm not Johnny Rico, right? I put in Howard in one scenario. I already have Howard, and I don't need to go out and buy Ochoa.
No, you've got them there in your club. Both of them in your club. You got to pick number 1, number 2. Who are you doing? What?
Oh, they're already in the roster.
Premier League.
Then Ochoa, no question.
Hey, if you have the preferences, obviously for Johnny, Ochoa was the standout player.
Hey, I'm not surprised. I kind of knew that.
I think we all knew that. I think it was I was thinking, obviously, I don't really.
It's fun debating.
Yeah, it's fun debating on who. I mean, it's not like we had a bad keepers and you know, backing them up. I mean, I think was it I don't know if it was Eric or Martin that said, you know Ochoa, you're gonna need him to have that magical save, you know, that have those against the great players, and he did it. He did it against Brazil. He did it against Croatia, and obviously even against Holland, Netherlands. So yeah, for Johnny, I mean. Obviously, Guillermo Ochoa stood out, and not only for us, but for all over the world. We've known that Ochoa has done this before. I mean, look at his Ajaccio game. Look at his even his America days. It's like it's not a surprise. It wasn't like even let's say Keylor Navas. I mean, I still thought he was the best CONCACAF before the World Cup, best keeper in CONCACAF for what he was doing. I was named week after week, and what's going on. But yeah, Tom. Obviously, Johnny. You know, Guillermo Ochoa. Who's the number 1 Mexico player on your that did everything he needed to do to have that spot?
I think Herrera was just unbelievable. Stepped up a level. I mean, you know, watching him in the Mexican League, you knew he had something a bit special. Seen it at the World Cup against the type of opposition Mexico were up against, just re-emphasised it and just maybe even stepped him up. I mean, I honestly think Herrera is now a player that if he stays at Porto another year or two, you know, and he carries on with this trajectory, you know, he could really move to a top European club. I mean, he's that good, and he just seems to love it. You know, he just got that constant smile on his face, and he just seems at home on the field. Like he's born to just be on the field and make his passes and run 10, 11 kilometers, and you know, he just loves it. So Herrera, and yeah,
Eric.
I think Hector Moreno made it possible for Rafa Marquez to shoulder less of the blame this time around whenever something went wrong in defense, which was not often. I think Hector Moreno was just absolutely fantastic. He's absolutely a killer in the back and stifled some of the world's best strikers, stifled Neymar, stifled Mandzukic, stifled Van Persie for the first half, stifled Samuel Eto'o. I mean, you just cannot give enough superlatives to what Hector Moreno was able to do for the first 315 minutes of this World Cup before he tragically went out with that huge injury. When he comes back, I think this injury completely derailed his summer. I mean, he was set for a 15-20 million euro transfer. There was no question about it. Now he needs to come back. Maybe a team takes a chance on him in December. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have to wait another year to see Hector Moreno move on from Espanyol, but I do think that this is the future for Mexico. Not just in defense. This isn't, nobody's going to match Rafa Marquez. Nobody's going to be Rafa Marquez, just like there's not going to be another Hugo Sanchez. But Hector Moreno is an entirely different breed of player. He's going to be a fantastic guy for Mexico and for his club as well.
Hector Moreno stood out for me. I mean, just the security down and just taking the level of just what he did. It was amazing. And then obviously Rafa, just like you said, Eric, but Hector Moreno for me stood out the most. Piojo had Gio, kept going with Gio and what he did. I thought Gio finally had a good World Cup and a good tournament and all that he did. And obviously Guardado surprising me, finding that spot and that was all Piojo right there, giving Guardado that spot, and I think he did amazing. That goal against Croatia, it's like you saw that team come back alive. Especially obviously the first goal, but then when Guardado scored, it was amazing to witness that. Now on the other spectrum, go ahead, Tom.
No, I was going to say a true surprise. A true surprise for me was Gallito Vasquez. Yeah. That was one of my biggest concern before the World Cup. There was only going to be one holding midfield position in the formation, and it was all assumed that it was going to be Juan Carlos Medina before his injury that left him out of the World Cup. Then it was, thought that maybe Héctor Herrera would kind of fill that slot, Carlos Salcido, but you put in Gallito Vasquez, very inexperienced player, as the lone holding midfield. I was truly surprised. That was my biggest worry before the World Cup.
That was my big, I told you guys.
Yeah. Hey, I completely agree, Jonny. Massa Rodriguez.
Yeah.
I mean, what a decision by Piojo. Talking about big decisions to put him ahead of like Diego Reyes, who had been playing a bit for Porto before coming in. What a massive decision, and he got it completely right, didn't he?
Massa had a great tournament. There was times where Massa looked like class. I mean, in what he did. So I think overall that just shows Piojo's decision of seeing what he sees and what we can do. Really quickly. Who didn't look to, who was not a disappointment, but obviously didn't step up. For me, Layun didn't. I don't think he was the player that we all thought that was going to come in, and maybe it was because of the scheme or the players that we did that. But who was it for you guys on someone that maybe underachieved or at least you expected most?
Oribe.
Eric goes with Oribe.
I agree.
I think, coming off of that amazing 2013, coming off another great season with Santos Laguna, deep playoff run, getting into the semifinals, I think we all expected a little bit more from Oribe Peralta. I mean, he was so confident, and Piojo was so confident in him that he benched Chicharito Hernandez, despite Chicharito not being in that right frame of mind and that right level of play, was still always going to be a very, very big candidate for anybody to start for Mexico. He did not do it because Oribe Peralta was a lot better, and it's something that potentially could have been very, very controversial. Just everybody kind of rolled with it. Everybody was like, yeah, that's logical that Oribe will start ahead of Chicharito. Great first game from him against Cameroon, but I think he faded. He faded fast, and I think a lot of it has to do with stamina. I don't think Oribe Peralta was physically fit for this tournament. I think he was maybe a little bit tired from the club season, but there was something off. There was something off after that Cameroon game, and we didn't see a lot of Peralta after the first match in Natal.
Yeah, I thought he did. Yeah, I thought he was slightly disappointing. I think he did the dirty stuff well in terms of fighting for the ball, into holding the ball up, and I think it was that first goal, wasn't it, against Cameroon? Was it that goal where he put the ball through to Giovanni? I think it was that one. But yeah, but he didn't produce that special moment, did he? I mean, that's what we're all expecting. We're expecting him to do that Olympic moment, that that golden boy who can make the difference, and he didn't do it. But I'd say biggest disappointment for me was Layun. I really thought that I thought he could do something really good this World Cup, and he didn't. He looked like a player who the occasion slightly got to him at some points. He gave the ball away just absolutely needlessly a lot of times, and he didn't provide the danger that Mexico needed. I mean, in that from the left wing, and slightly surprising that you're reading his name linked with the likes of Liverpool. I mean, I think he's good enough to go to a decent European club, but when you look at like Liverpool fighting for the Premier League, and then honestly, can you see Layun playing for a team like that? He's got
a European passport. I think passport. I think that makes it a lot easier.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
to think about switching over.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in England, he would get the visa even without it now, because he's played the amount of games. He'd probably get it on appeal. But I mean, in other countries, definitely. I think he'll just go back to Italy where he's been before. But yeah, he was the biggest disappointment.
Jonny?
Do not take away Layun from my beloved America.
Jonny, where can we get you that it doesn't matter?
I say take him, go.
Doesn't matter about country.
We already gave up Adrian Aldrete. We don't have any more left backs.
Oh dear.
Gil Cordero is your left back of the future.
Was, I'm going to say Carlos Peña. Carlos Peña seemed a for sure starter before the World Cup started.
Oh, that's
come the friendlies. The Israel match, the Bosnia match, the Portugal match. Something happened with Carlos Peña, lost his spot. The Carlos Peña from maybe 6 months ago would have done some damage in this team.
Well, I think Carlos Peña hasn't, even with León. I think he had at the end of the Libertadores, and then maybe the last two games during the championship in MX. But before that, he wasn't even. I think we saw Carlos Peña doing the 2013, doing much better. But during the World Cup, obviously. Wait. How can you say you wanted Carlos Peña in the last game, and yet he disappointed in the other games, Jonny?
Well, I'm saying it's disappointing that he lost his spot, that he couldn't win the starting spot for every single game, because the Carlos Peña that had the skill to be in the starting lineup, that Carlos Peña done.
We're talking about performance, though. I mean, I could say that I'm disappointed that Raúl Jiménez didn't play, more than he did, which I think he just came on for mop-up duty against Croatia. Am I wrong in saying that? Or who did he play against? Brazil? Did he just get like 2 or 3 minutes against one of those two?
Yeah, and came up with a brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, so but I could still say that I'm disappointed that he didn't get to play as much as he did.
Carlos Peña had a starting spot and lost it. Raúl Jiménez never had a starting spot. It was
I think Carlos Peña's starting spot was completely dependent on Luis Montes' starting spot, and that's just obvious. Those two play as a unit. They can't really play individually. They have such a great understanding of what the other guy's going to do. They're both uniquely talented, but they work better as a duo. I think whoever buys Peña should have that buyer beware sticker. I mean, this is a guy that only really associates with one player on the entire team at the club level, and he also did it at the national team level.
Yeah,
we have yet to see Carlos Peña really kind of pull away from Luis Montes.
That's a very good analysis. As far as the players, let's talk about what's next in the future and the going on. Put away, obviously what would happen in this World Cup. And with Mexico, with the Llameritos, y juegan como siempre, pierden como nunca. But let's look at captain. Rafa's leaving. Rafa is actually we don't know if he's leaving. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays until we kick him out, until Piojo says enough. But I threw out on the Twitter, who would be the next captain, and this is a very good conversation because obviously everyone has his experience. Obviously Rafa taking it so young and in the early years, So not necessarily experience will get you in. It's who has that leadership, who can motivate, who can take the team on its back. You know, having Rafa leaving right away, the best player, you know, just like Eric said, is Moreno, is taking it. But who do you guys see as our next captain if you were in Piojo's shoes, or who deserves it? Are two different questions. Jonny, start with you, sir.
Guillermo Ochoa. He's got that leadership.
Does he? But I don't know what it is, but does he really portray that leadership? I'm not saying you should scream to your players like Osvaldo Sanchez, but I don't know why.
No.
But I don't see that he's that guy
No.
that's let's bring everybody in. That I think he's amazing, but he's always had that soft personality, man. That's how I feel. Like I don't know if I've seen that, Jonny. And as much I think we would like him to be it, that's where I see that. But sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, I think back on the Club America days, and I remember that 2008 America, god awful America, dead last in the table. There was two guys that kind of were the only thing holding America up. That was Guillermo Ochoa and Salvador Cabañas, and I think the leadership qualities are in Guillermo Ochoa. I think he's capable of wearing the captain's armband.
Jonny disagrees. I mean, Eric disagrees. Eric, who do you think?
Doug disagrees.
I don't think Memo Ochoa should be captain. Yeah, the dog disagrees. That's when you get the dogs barking at you.
He didn't like
just
that.
Wrong.
You annoyed the dog, Jonny.
I mean, again, we're not going to.
I annoy everybody.
We're not going to see you annoy the dog with your choice, with your irresponsible choice. I think we're not going to see Héctor Moreno in a national team jersey for the next 8 months. Forget about 6 months. It's going to take him a little bit longer to get back to that level. So it's probably going to be about 8 or 9 months until we see Héctor Moreno. So if you're talking about an interim captain, I think Piojo Herrera is going to go the sensible route and give it to Massa Rodriguez if he continues his level of play. I don't see any reason why not. If he calls up Salcido for the next few games, Salcido is going to be that captain. Piojo, that guy who values veteran leadership over anything else. So we're going to see Massa captain, or we're going to see Salcido captain. We're not going to see any kind of guys come in from left field just because they yell a lot. Paul Aguilar is 110 pounds, but he yells a lot. So he might be captain. No, he's not going to be captain. You're a central defender with just a ton of experience. Take that captain's armband. Beyond that, I think it's going to be Moreno for sure.
I can see Reyes too.
Reyes.
Yeah.
He's going.
He already wore the captain
No.
for Mexico.
I think it was because he was the closest to the
Yeah,
captain. He was the closest to give the armband in that game.
Right.
Right. Tom.
Yeah, Reyes is 9 years old. I mean, he's not going to be the captain.
He's just tall, lanky. But that guy needs to get him meat on his body, and he'd be amazing. He needs to start working out. Tom, who do you see as a captain? I guess the question is, who's Piojo going to pick, and who do you think should be the captain? But hey, sometimes that's the best.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, don't think there's an easy choice. I mean, I think that conversation just highlighted that. I mean, there's no one answer, is there? There's nobody that steps in. There's no that leader who's 28, 29, 30 years old with.
What about Gio?
Ready to do it. Gio. I mean, there's loads of names like Massa, Uribe, Moreno, Guardado, Gio, Ochoa.
Gio, Guardado. I think Gio would be. I mean, I think people are overlooking the fact that he's been there. He's had that. I think he comes in.
The problem with
I think personality
Played
wise,
100 games for Mexico.
Yeah.
The problem.
Go on, Jonny.
Sorry, Tom. No, go ahead.
No, go for it. Problem with Gio.
The problem with Gio is that he kind of timid. He'll hide in the difficult moments of a game when you most need your captain and leader to step up and push the team. That's when
Rafa Marquez did not step up.
That's when Giovanni Dos Santos will kind of hide away from the ball.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he gave it Guardado. Another player
against Holland. Yeah, that goal against Holland was classic Gio, just hiding.
I think
if Mexico were down 2-0, tell me Gio Dos Santos does the same thing.
Against the United States, 4-2. Gio, they were down 2-0.
He
Gio,
what did he do? He scored this really incredible goal. What the hell?
Mexico already winning when Gio scored that goal, that amazing Gold Cup goal.
Come on, that is just absolute.
I see Gio. I see Gio being a captain. You know who else? I think Chicharito on the field when he needs to get the team together. I know that, obviously he's not getting the most playing time, but let's just say he is getting the playing time. He is a Chicharito that he is. I really believe, even in that Gold Cup, you saw in every goal, he's like getting everybody there. I mean, I think something turns on him. I think he can have and he can take the team. But it's going to be interesting.
I think personality-wise, I don't think Chicharito, I don't know. I think he's a bit, this is only a theory, but he's a bit of a, square, Does that make sense? A bit of a geek.
It's like a scared 8-year-old.
Watch that Gold Cup. I mean, into every goal. I mean, that guy was like, I think he was even mad at his players because they were not taking the ball fast enough in order to get to the other goal because they were down by 1-0. I think when Pablo Herrera scored or something. So I think it'll be interesting. Moreno, hands down, as soon as he comes back, I think he should be he has the experience. He has that to be the captain. Other than that, after that, I agree with Eric. I think Piojo's going to go with. I mean, why not Massa? I mean, look at the tournament. Did he have any experience? I've seen Massa during training, and I've said this before. He is a leader during the training, and he's there. There's something about him that I think people, because he's had the tenure. But it'll be interesting to see. Really quickly, I know we're approaching our cutoff time. I think it comes down to coaching. We have the players, we have a league, we have the money. Obviously, the FMF, the amount of time into the Mexican team and what we have, I think it's there. But let's just kind of look forward in the future. We saw 2006. In 2016 we discussed it. What is the #1 priority if I can get you guys to get to that quinto partido? To get to, and maybe not obsess about it so much, but what do we need to do differently in this cycle? And I know we can take another hour for that question, but at the same time, in your answer, it's like we've done. This is the World Cup. We closed the chapter. Let's look forward. And in your opinion, what needs to happen differently for us to be successful?
Sustained success, so that the psychological aspect of the game is completely dominated. You can't do what Mexico has done, and not just in the World Cup. We saw that during the qualifiers as well. Mexico was up 1-0 against Honduras at the Estadio Azteca. They ended up losing 2-1. They drew level with Costa Rica in San Jose. They were definitely the better team, 1-1, and then they lose that game as well in San Jose. Mexico has a real problem with keeping leads. Doesn't matter who's the coach. I'm going to give Miguel Herrera that point, but they really need to work on the psychological aspect. And the only way that you can really kind of build on any sort of any mind frame is by winning games. If your team has been there and they didn't struggle through World Cup qualifying, they had a great Copa America, they had a great Copa Oro, they defend their Olympic gold medal in 2016. They have a great Confederations Cup. I mean, I'm not saying you have to win all of these things, but at least get a couple of trophies in that 4-year interim. If you go into 2018 with all that under your belt and with 10, 15 guys out of that 23-man squad that have been playing together for 3 or 4 years, gosh, that's just something you can't teach. If these guys are confident going into it, there's no telling what they can accomplish. Again, this might be pretty. It's a good example, but it's a nuisance. Look at Netherlands. Look at the Netherlands. Look at that team. They just completely did away with 2010. They said, all right, this is not the Dutch style of play, and there's only 5 or 6 players in that 23-man squad that are still holdovers from 2010, and a few of those are really big stars. Robin, Van Persie, I think one of the keepers is in there as well. So again, that's just 5 guys. They brought in a whole new group of guys. Louis van Gaal was like, all right, we're going to whip this team into shape. If you take a look at that Netherlands squad, there's a lot of players from Ajax, a lot of players from AZ, Alkmaar, a lot of players from Feyenoord. Not the traditionally huge squad you see from the Netherlands, guys over in Real Madrid or Chelsea or whatever. There's a good mix of guys. Because Louis van Gaal really kind of thought out what he wanted from a Netherlands team. Miguel Herrera needs to really kind of think, all right, am I going to keep playing 5-3-2 until 2018? All right, need to build a system around a certain type of player. And sometimes that means you're going to leave guys out. Sometimes that means you're going to be Didier Deschamps leaving Samir Nasri out, because of an attitude problem or whatever. You need to really pick the best guys for your system if you're a system guy. Miguel Herrera is not the type of coach. No matter, I don't care what he says during the press conferences. Oh yeah, we played 4-5-1, then we went to a 4-4-2. That's bullshit. You are a 5-3-2 guy. You want to play 5-3-2? Get 23 players who are able to dominate that system going forward. That's going to take care of your psychological issues, and that's possibly going to get you into a quinto partido and beyond.
Well, not only that, I mean, the seeding of it, I mean, let's say we do have a great 4 years into winning. We should, I mean, if we win most of our games in the competition, just like you saw in 2006 with, being seeded and being the top 8 team. Look at Belgium, look at Switzerland getting in there. Look at Colombia, who did they play? I mean, I was one of the said that I think Brazil was going to beat them. Just how they didn't play anybody that they beat. They got to the quarterfinals by taking that, being at the top of their group and getting that seeding. Obviously, it's luck sometimes not getting a Euro in there in your team, as you saw, the group of deaths or whatever. But obviously, getting and winning what we need to do before the World Cup, and obviously keep going on there. And obviously, you're going to face big teams. Not saying that you're trying to avoid them, but it was a difference of of us getting a Netherlands or Argentina, or for whatever reason. I mean, in 2002 with the U.S., we totally fell apart. But great analysis, Tom. With you, what needs to change for us to make that next jump?
I think that more players playing top level of world football, which is top European leagues and the Champions League. Look at the semi-finalists of this World Cup. Vast majority play regularly in the Champions League. It's the highest level of competition. It's where you sharpen your teeth and you really you get used to the absolute pressure of playing at that level, and you get better by playing against better players, playing with better players. And I think if you look at the European players that Mexico fielded this World Cup, they've come into the competition with so much criticism about the qualifying, and I think we saw the quality. Asked the question, would Hector Moreno have stepped up? Would he be as good as he is if he'd have stayed in Mexico? Would Hector Herrera now be playing at that level? All these players, would Rafa Marquez have ever been the player that he has and was if he'd have stayed in Mexico? And I think that the Mexican system must have found a way of helping these players get over to Europe. And I mean, it's easier said than done, because the biggest obstacle is that these players make a lot more money in Mexico than they would do at a mid-table, La Liga team, for example. So that's the difficulty. You either go to a massive club, or the player himself takes a cut in wages of his own will. So it's a difficult one, but I mean, I honestly think that is the best way forward for Mexico.
Good, definitely good analysis. And you saw obviously the players leaving their home and going to Europe. Obviously the different level of play, and I think also different coaching. I think that's where you're getting that. The coaching is so crucial, and knowing that maybe Piojo didn't have, and you can tell the players, but yet you've played in Europe, you've been in the situations, you know what you need to do to also be part of the team in the field. It's not like you have Miguel Herrera telling you what to do every time, but that's where players have the decision. If you're going to be playing in the games and you've already gotten that experience from great coaches, you're going to portray that in the field. So great, definitely great analysis there. Jonny, to end it, obviously, what needs to happen? Should we pay the refs a little more? Should we have more? The FMF have a little more, mandate in FIFA when we needs to happen. But up to you. What do we need to do?
I'm thinking continuity. As much as everyone wants to try and avoid setting that 4-year process goal, because it's so damn hard to keep. I think we need to keep it. Imagine an Ochoa being an absolute starter, 4 years ago, without the whole debate, without the whole managers choosing this guy, the next manager's choosing the other guy. Have Herrera stay the whole 4 years, have him establish, base starting 11 throughout, his A team, have him establish a B team, have set. Have his team set for the entire 4 years. I think continuity would be the best thing in Mexico for Mexico.
Yeah. But what would happen if you don't get the Gold Cup? If, you get third place? I think that's where we started freaking out and, okay, well, we're going to need a change and what we need to do. So continuity is great, but you have to have, you kind of like what Eric said, you have to have that. You have to first step, all right, we're going to go in a Gold Cup. We got to get that. And because continuity is great, but when you have the wrong, maybe, like you said, Piojo has done everything he needed to do.
I'll put it out there. Would you like a CONCACAF title or a semifinal at the next World Cup?
But you don't know that's. I mean, it's 3 years before that. So I mean, let me tell you, you don't get out of the group stage, you're gonna keep Piojo, because he made 3 bad games in the first 3 games of the the group stage of the CONCACAF into the Gold Cup, and just seeing bad results because he wanted to do the 5-3-2, but get Pinto and Klinsmann already know that that's how he's gonna play, and he gets completely out coached, which is what's happening to Chepo de la Torre. People knew what he was gonna do, and he wasn't playing. So it's like we have to have those steps. Yeah, kind of like, not to say what Hugo did. I don't think he should have gotten fired, but at the same time, having the all right, you have the Gold Cup. We need to have a great showing at the Gold Cup, regardless if it's a win or not, and have those esas metas. That you're gonna keep doing that in order to do that. I think that's going to motivate Piojo, and I think it's going to happen. But I agree with you. I would love to have Piojo for 4 more years, but giving him the things that he need to do. But who knows? He can keep being stubborn. But we keep talking about it and make this from an hour to 2 hours to 3 hour shows. I got plenty to say about Luis Van Gaal, and I don't think he's that great of a coach, and I'm sure that's a whole conversation we can go into. I have a lot to say about the players. Obviously, the experience. We did it. It was a World Cup, and for me, for all the young fans that are listening, guys, for all of us, I know we've been through this since 1986, and it's like you kind of get it still hurts, but you kind of go, okay. So for all of you young fans that are out there, I think it's going to change. I think we're going to do different things, and I think. I saw it. We have great players out there. This is a great generation that's coming up. So I think we applaud what the team did and the little time that they had. But also I see good things for El Tri as a fan, and obviously as someone that looks at them all the time. So guys, go ahead, Johnny.
I'm sorry. Also, with continuity, we can avoid them coming and just completely messing up my club.
Dude, stay away from it. Country is like 10 times more than club. How am I going to tell you that, Johnny? All right, guys. We have a lot. Liga MX is starting up. We'll have a great show previewing that next week. We'll continue going. We have a lot for the Mex Soccer Show in the future. It's not over. It's just beginning. The World Cup was great to cover, but we have so many competitions, and we'll be expanding to different things. Guys, this has been another successful Mexican Soccer Show with FoodMex Live. We hope you have enjoyed it. Please tweet out the link. Share it to your friends. We're growing. And obviously getting more of a impact here on the internet and on Twitter and everything. So let's keep talking about El Tri. Johnny!
Special shout out to Telcel America. Thanks for their help.
Telcel America helping us out. If you saw that tweeting through Mex Soccer Show, definitely special shout out to them. But a lot of things happening in the future, guys. So keep talking about El Tri, and welcome to another 4 years of the Mexican Soccer Show, at least. Have a great day.